Hi, we're here in Waterford Distillery and we're joined by Megan and Ned. Megan is... What are your role here, Megan?
Public relations, I suppose. Bit of everything. I think we all wear a few hats here.
Megan wears most of the hats.
And Ned, well, your role is...
head distiller and making sure everyone is having a good time.
Okay, so it's a big responsibility there.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's an awful lot of anticipation going on now about this new release that's coming out. But before we get to there, there's been a lot of excitement about Waterford Distillery. I suppose Mark Rainier, the founder, is bringing a lot of kudos with him. Can you tell us a little bit about how the distillery was set up and what your roles, say, are on a daily basis are within those?
Yeah, so I suppose you're welcome first and foremost, sir.
Thank you.
So it was Mark came in 2014, December 2014, and bought what was a closed Guinness or Diageo brewery, and we set about turning it into a distillery. So all of 2015 was turning it into a distillery, and then on the 9th of December 2015 we had our first trial spirit run here. And then 2016 onwards we started distilling our single farms. So I suppose that in a nutshell is kind of what happened. Obviously Mark, as I said, bought a lot of kudos with him, and his philosophy is single farms, terroir. But I suppose terroir comes under the provenance umbrella. So for us it's the 3 T's: terroir, traceability and transparency. So we can show you what we're doing, we can tell you what we're doing, and we can trace everything back to the day the field was sown, which is a big thing for us as well. And the flavours then comes from the barley. So I suppose that's what the distillery is about, and that's what started. And yeah, we're a little over 4 years distilling now at this stage.
Right, and it's double distilled, single malt whiskey.
Single malt.
That's what you're focusing on. That's the ethos.
All Irish barley, only Irish barley.
And only Irish barley.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're on a site that obviously was a Diageo and a Guinness brewery before, but there is a long history here.
Yeah, so I suppose the site here, the first, I think, official date is the 14th of February 1792. So there's been brewing here for a long number of years, going back to Strangmans and Cherries, as would have been known. So, you know, the reason any brewery or distillery is built is because of water. So we're on the river shore outside, and we have very good water supply in our aquifer wells. So that's the main reason any distillery is built is for water. So yeah, so it's here a long time. I suppose Guinness took it over around 1956, and in 2003 they spent 40 million euros and renovated it from a brewery, traditional Smithwick's brewery, to making BBA, which is beer blended aged, which is Guinness concentrate for Africa, and closed it in December 2013.
Right. I think, Megan, you were mentioning that the aquifer is actually the original one. That's one of the original sources that you're using there?
The well that we used would have been the well that the Strangmans used back in 1792. So it's 12 metres deep, and as I said, volcanic aquifer. Now we've 2 boreholes as well that we use as well, but same water supply. Now we put it through a UV filter, and that's it, so we don't treat our water at all. So
I'm just going to say, it's snowing here, lads.
Yeah, there we go. We might get snowed in and get locked into the distillery, which would be a terrible thing. But the other thing that we noticed was walking around, and you were very kind to bring us around, was you've kept a lot of the old brewery intact. Is that planned to be a visitor centre or an attraction in the future, or what are the plans for the...
I suppose, look, the artefacts are there and the history is there. It could be something down the line. There's no talks yet. I think for them, you know, we've taken on such ownership now with Head Down producing good spirit that we're tied up with that project, I suppose. So perhaps down the line.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, a lot of the old building is kept. There's protection notices on some of it and stuff, but for us at the moment we are focusing on spending all our available cash on good barley, good casks. And when we start selling something, which is in a couple of weeks' time, we'll revisit then and see about tourists and visitors. There's a lot of money to be spent on doing it properly, and at the moment we're spending it on the grain and the casks and such like. So
I mean, there's a real focus here, and like we spoke to Mark before the last time, we're down nearly 2 years ago now. There's a real focus on obviously the terroir, the traceability, those elements. What do you think it is that terroir brings to the whiskey, and what is it you're trying to actually identify by doing traceability and terroir?
Yeah, well, I suppose what is terroir? Terroir is the things that influence the barley or the plant or flowers, whatever. In our case, it's barley for malt. So it's land, it's people affected. So someone who sows a cover crop will have nitrogen in the ground. Someone who has heavy machinery will affect it. The depth of your ploughing will affect it. If there's a forest around, that'll affect the soil. So everything that will affect the soil is basically terroir. And what that means then is that we have different terroirs coming in from each farm every 8.5 days. It takes us roughly to do it. So every 8.5 days we're producing a new make spirit which tastes different. And we're tasting the difference at the new make spirit stage before it's influenced by the cask. So for us, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for consistencies in the spirit. Now what we do is we are as consistent as we can be throughout the whole process, so we have things as repeatable as possible. So the facilitator, as Mark calls it, helped us to do that. We have temperature translators, pressure probes, everything is all singing, all dancing, automation, apart from the safe where the cut is done manually. So for us it's getting different grain in from different farms and being able to trace that back to the day it's sown. I suppose even just a small thing like normally a farmer will bring the grain into the merchant. We work in conjunction with Dalton's and Minch Malt, and Dalton's will go out and collect the grain to ensure traceability.
Okay, so that's an important factor, is the traceability
it's just,
of
yeah, it's just, this project, this distillery, this concept doesn't work, I suppose, without Dalton's. Because they built the cathedral, which is where the grain is stored individually. If we didn't have something like that, we couldn't keep grain separate. So that's a big part of it. We go to the bother to go out and actually collect the grain, so we know it's coming from Martin Foley's farm or Philly O'Brien's farm or wherever, and it comes in, it's kept in discrete batches and dried separately. So when if you're up in Dalton's during the summer and the grain is coming in, you'll see a mountain of grain, thousands of ton deep, and you'll see our 110 ton batch, which looks like a mini under a nearly a jumbo jet beside it, like. So that's what it is, like,
Okay, and you've got a huge number of farmers actually involved. How do you communicate, and how do you decide which farmers you're going to use, and how do you deal with the logistics of all of those things? So, obviously traceability needs a lot of paperwork and all the rest. How is all that managed? Yeah,
again, we have a contract with Minch Malt. We don't have a contract directly with the farmers, even though the farmers are, a big part of what we're doing. And we will have farmers that would supply us this year and may never supply us again. So to date, I think we've about 130 odd different farmers, and that's conventional, organic and biodynamic. What happens then is Minch will decide basically who comes into us.
Right. Okay.
So each year we would look for about 35 maybe batches per year. Of that 35, there's some organic who are single farmers, but then there's some organic who are mixed together, and the 3 biodynamic farmers are mixed together. So what happens is we have specifications into what we require in terms of protein and moistures and stuff, everything like that. So it's whoever meets that criteria. So I suppose they could start with 60 farms or 70 farms, and we'll get the best ones out of that. It's a bit like having a premiership of farmers.
And I suppose as a part of your role, getting the message out that terroir and traceability are important. What are the challenges in getting that message out to the public and the enthusiasts?
Well, I suppose it's just a matter of, it's all well and good to say what you're doing, but also to be able to show it. And that's why we record everything, and we're big on, like, if you have any questions, we can answer them, and if we don't know the answers, we'll find them hopefully, or point you in the right direction. But I think it's such a broad concept, this whole terroir idea, and for us, to trace from field to bottle, essentially, much like your food, from field to fork. It's become a big concept, and for us, people are wanting to know where their food's coming from, they're wanting to know where their drinks are coming from, and that's a huge part of it for us, I suppose.
Yeah, and also then you asked about the paperwork and everything like that. The way farming has gone now is everything has to have paperwork anyway.
Yeah.
So, it's just Minch liaise with the farmers and they get all their information. Minch obviously have their information, so when it comes into us, we get all that information. We have a purpose-built traceability system called ProTrace. One of the guys here, Keane, did it. Lucky. So he built it, and it's purpose-built.
Yeah.
So it's done from the point of view of what we need to know. So it's a simple thing, like he went out to weather station, so the nearest weather station to fields.
Yeah.
So the day so we've all that information for the years the crop is sown, and then we can identify it was sown on this date and harvested this date, and how much rain fell and how much sunlight was.
Oh, you can
available.
look at patterns then in the data that we collect and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I suppose we're building up all the information. We can't really do much with the information at the moment.
Sure.
But it's better to have them be looking for, and they'll have to get clever people to interpret. And then
not somebody like myself.
No, normally, but then there's so many different variables as well. That's the good thing about the terroir. Like, you could sow today and harvest on the 1st of August, and you could do that tomorrow, or you could do that next year and the following year. Same field, same variety, and you'll have different flavours because you can't influence what's going to happen during the year.
Control the weather, I suppose.
And what do you say to those people that would say, well, distillation is a pretty aggressive, violent process. It doesn't really, the terroir doesn't get a chance to shine through that process. Is there, I know you've done some research, and some people have done some, are actually doing some research, universities are doing some research. Are there any indications of the findings? I know the young scientist thing showed up some things.
Yeah, so I suppose we are doing a project with a guy called Dr. Dustin Hare from Oregon State University in Chagas, and it's to see does terroir exist in barley for malting for Irish whiskey, and the preliminary findings are encouraging. I won't steal Dustin's thunder because what he's doing a peer review paper, so it's not as if we want him to say this. He has to stand in front of a group of his peers and deliver the information. So yeah, the findings are encouraging, I can say that much. And so it's scientifically done and everything is done properly. I suppose the distillation process destroying, or is that said destroying?
Aggressive
I'd hate to think I was destroying it. I think actually what we're doing is we're condensing the flavours. I don't think we're destroying it at all. Some distilleries may destroy it. That's their own business. I don't know about that. But I think the way we distill is very, very slow. It's nice and gentle. It's like if you have a chef and he's making a sauce. If he's making a sauce, he'll gently boil it. He'll concentrate it down.
Yeah.
That's what we're kind of doing as well. Like, we're taking barley, Irish barley, which is the best barley in the world. We only use Irish barley. We don't buy anything from France or Ukraine, and we only buy Irish barley. And we believe it's the best in the world, and we distill it really gently, and we're doing it in such a way that, for me, we're not.
You're only enhancing and
we're only concentrating it up. We're only doing that. No, that's just the way we do it. Other distilleries may destroy it. I don't know.
Low and slow is our motto.
Low and slow.
Low and slow. Well, I mean, empirically, just from tasting, whatever's happening behind the chemical level, I certainly see a difference. Even the colours, the same sort of process going through.
Yeah, I suppose what we've, our new make spirit, what we've constantly been told by people coming in, whether it's the truth or it's people blowing smoke up or arse, I don't know, is that our spirit is very drinkable. It's very clean, it's very good. You could actually drink it there and then, and you could so I think that's 71 or 2%. I think that's a good indication of where we're coming from, what our starting point is. Sometimes with new make spirit, you're bringing it to your nose and you're backing away from it because it's too faint or very aggressive, and it just gives you nearly a headache straight away. And we don't have spirit like that. So maybe we're the sole distillery that's not destroying the spirit. I don't know. But all I can say is this is what we're doing, and we're not.
And you're very focused on what you're doing. I mean, and Mark has been quoted. He's focused on what he's doing, and he's doing it this way, and that's it. And yourself the same. The 68% whiskey we tried earlier as well was very, very little burn on that. In fact, it was really rich. Is there anything you attribute that to? Is it the process of the slow distillation, or is it the climate?
Again, it's back to your starting point. Your good ingredient is good new make spirit. We've tasted different new make spirits and smelt it, and so for the lads there behind the camera and stuff. And I think we're kind of it is different, okay. But it's a good spirit. It doesn't have that burn at that stage, even the new make spirit. So when we're spending the money then buying good quality casks, so we get American First Fill, American Virgin, French premium casks, wine casks, and VDN, Vandy Natural, Sherry Port Madeira, we're spending 30% of our overall budget on that. It's only second behind grain. We're buying good casks. So to what we are saying is, you'll hear 60, 70, 80% of your flavours coming from the wood. I don't know about that, but all I can say is, what we would say is 100% of our spirit is influenced by 100% of our cask. So if we have a cask that's, 4th or 5th or 6th fill, cask, that's not going to have a huge influence on our spirit, but it's 100% of that cask influence 100% of the spirit. So for us, we buy very good casks. We have good spirit going in, spirit that's different from each farm. The spirit is a different starting point. We hope to God then it comes out as something that we like and people like.
Lots of variety anyway.
Lots of variety,
Just very quickly, just to wrap up, I mean, where do you see the future then for Waterford Distillery, from your point, I suppose, Megan, and then Megan and Ned?
Sure, look, hopefully great things, I suppose. It's exciting times ahead, and I think we're all, like I said, as soon as I started here, the passion behind everything was just infectious, and I think it rubs off on people when they're in here, and I hope for a long success for us here, I suppose, but we'll only know as when we get out the doors on April 25th and moving forward. But
I suppose for me it's basically one bottle at a time. It's to use the old sporting cliche, one beer at a time, but it is literally one bottle at a time, because while the bottle is coming out, say on the 25th of April.
You're thinking the next one?
I'm thinking the one that's going to come. So we're distilling, and we mightn't be distilling that day. We might give the dad's day off. But we're going to be distilling around those days, and that spirit is going to make whiskey in 5 or 3 or 20 years time. So it's the whole thing is just making sure that quality is the factor all the way along. And the other thing is, and I'm not sure about other distilleries, but for us, we want to have the crack.
Well, I mean, whiskey without a bit of crack.
We want to have the crack, and we want to enjoy ourselves, and we want to make stuff that we are happy to make, and we want to, people say Mark is controversial, and we are a bit controversial. I don't think we are controversial. We're just doing what we want to do. And if that's controversial, I don't really know why it's controversial, but we're just doing what we want to do.
I think as well, who was it who said, what should your legacy want to be?
Oh yeah, someone wanted to know what the legacy was going to be. So I just said, listen.
Already?
Yeah, why not? I know. I thought
it wasn't prepared for the question, but.
I just said, listen. Someone gets a bottle of water whiskey, opens it, pours it, because as some of you may know now, you mightn't see the colour before it, but you pour it and you see it and you smell it and taste it and you smile and you enjoy it. and you want to go back and get another sip, or you want to go back and get another bottle. That's it.
Yeah, well, we look forward to it. I have to admire the fact that the focus and the fact that you're doing things your own way. And we won't talk about your legacy, Megan. Nobody asked you about
The
that.
Olympics.
Yeah, the Olympics. Yeah, so best of luck making the Olympic team as well on that. So, look, thanks very much for the hospitality. It's been really exciting, actually, and get to try the pilgrimage and have another look around. Always fantastic. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.